webinar series organized by the Center for Asia Leadership in collaboration with InvestKL. My name is Faustino John Lim, and today's webinar is Designing Experiences in the COVID Era, 3 Tools to Adapt Your Business, with our speaker, Signo Uddenberg. If you are joining us for the first time, our center is an organization based out of Boston, US, and Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, operating in several cities across Asia. We were founded at Harvard University among fellows and alumni, and we are focused on helping leaders in Asia initiate change and manage progress in their organizations and communities. Our center's end goal is to help you promote societies and communities which are thriving, democratic, and just. So wherever you are in the world, although we focus our work in Asia, we want to thank you for your support. We are in the midst of a 20-week series, and the purpose of these webinars is to encourage and educate during these uncertain times. I would now like to recognize our speaker. Joining us from Quito, Ecuador, Signo Uddenberg is the Director of Innovation at MKThink, restaurant entrepreneur and co-founder of Ecuador's #1 restaurant as ranked by TripAdvisor, and also teaching faculty at the Center for Asia Leadership. Signo, welcome to the program. How are you?
Hey, John, great to be here. Thanks for having me. Doing well.
So how is everything? First of all, what do you, besides your restaurant, how is everything in Ecuador?
Well, kind of like the rest
Ecuador,
of the
by the way. You don't seem Ecuadorian, do you? Are you?
Yeah, I probably don't look look Ecuadorian. I'm a little bit taller. I'm down here. John knows the story, but I'm hello to everyone from around the world. It's pretty exciting to see a good mix of people. I'm down here. My wife is a professional chef, originally from Ecuador. I trained in France, and we met in San Francisco 6 years ago. And she convinced me a couple years ago it was time to move down here and start a restaurant, which had always been her dream. So here we are.
Nice. So Signo lives and works in Ecuador, but he also comes to Asia part-time for programs, and he also works part-time, also remotely for MKThink. What is MKThink again? Can you share a bit about that?
So MKThink's a design strategy firm based in San Francisco. We focus on the built environment, so buildings and spaces. So that's kind of our angle. But
okay.
So we very interesting. I care a lot about experiences in the context of space and environment.
Nice.
Yeah, great.
So economic progress has been described as a 4-stage evolution using the metaphor of a birthday cake. First, our society used to buy milk, eggs, flour, the commodities. Second, pre-mixed ingredients in a box, the product. Third, ordering the cake, the service. In the 4th stage, we outsource the birthday experience to Jollibee, McDonald's, or a nice restaurant. But as we all know, with all the restrictions we face, the COVID era has hit the experienced economy hard. So, we'll give you the slides. What are experiences? And what is experience design? How does it relate to design thinking? So Signo, the floor is yours.
Great. First of all, can you see my slides okay?
Yeah, looks good.
Awesome. Hey, John, well, great intro, and I really liked how you framed that. I think we're all thinking about experiences a lot right now, primarily for the reason that we can't experience a whole lot right now. We're mostly in our homes. But what I want to try to unpack today is that experiences are pretty much all around us and are everything. And while there's some that are really highlighted is their entertainment, which I'll highlight in this presentation, I want us to come away from this thinking in experiences. Just like you hear a lot of people talk about thinking in stories, I want to encourage us. So the first thing we need to establish is what is an experience? So I had to insert a photo, at least of our restaurant, usually buzzing with people right now, still waiting to be reopened. But this is an experience that we probably all have partaken in at some point, going out to dinner, going out for a meal, right? And so we go out to some great space. And one of the things I want to focus on is just the experience, if you will, of having dinner and having your friend the next day ask you, how was it? right? And you'll respond with, it was nice, it was a nice dinner, or you might say it was extraordinary, or you might say it was bad. But really, what are we commenting on? Because we're suggesting that this dinner was, kind of this homogenous experience. It was just one thing. It was one event. But the reality is a little bit different. The reality is it's a whole bunch of moments that make up an event, right? There was an arrival experience, there was a driving experience, there was a signing up experience, there was a reservation, there was an interaction with the waiter, there was a reservation with another customer. There's, tens, if not hundreds of moments that are occurring during that, during that experience or during that event. And so experiences aren't just one big thing that you can comment on. They're really made up of a lot of different things. And in particular, they're made up of certain defining moments. Not all of the moments in that restaurant are going to be ones that you remember later on, right? A lot of them just kind of run together and you forget them. And that was it. You were part of the experiencing self, but not part of the remembering self. But there are some defining moments that stand out. And those defining moments are often moments, like arrival, that transition moment when you first arrive, or that departure when you leave. Sometimes it's that first bite. It might be when you first meet your waiter. How did they approach you? What did they say? It's these collection of a smaller amount of moments that really start to define what we mean when we say it was a nice dinner, right? The dinner lasted a couple hours, but really it's going to come down to 6 seconds of different moments that are going to define for you, a week later when you say, how was that dinner, at SOMOS, our restaurant, a week ago. It's going to come down to these, just maybe 6 interactions. And so that's what we talk about experience, is really a collection of moments. And I like this quote from the book Power of Moments, which is an excellent, excellent book from Chip and Dan Heath, who've written some really other great books. But our lives are measured in moments, and defining moments are the ones that endure in our memories. Right? When you think, Daniel Kahneman has written about this, thinking fast and thinking slow. At the end of our lives, there's the remembering self and there's the experiencing self. We experience a lot, but we only remember a little bit, and so that's the thing to remember about experience: collection of moments, and really a collection of certain defining moments that we'll remember later on. So what is experience design? I like this quote too. So some of you might like quotes. I like to throw a couple in. If you don't remember anything else from this talk, hopefully you remember some good quotes. If you don't remember the quotes, maybe you remember the books, so a little bit of everything for those that are out there that learn different ways. But I've learned that this is a quote from Maya Angelou. I've learned that people will forget what you said. People will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. And I think this is a core aspect of experience design, is that there are a lot of different ways to deliver, let's say, food or services. But how you make someone feel during that experience will be something that will define you, oftentimes will differentiate you in a market wherever you're working. And so here's an experience that hopefully not too many of you had to experience so far. But is definitely topical right now, is COVID testing. And what I think is really interesting, you've probably seen this, I believe South Korea kind of led the way with the drive-through testing, and the US is still trying to catch up. But, this is probably not something that you might have thought of as an experience, but it is, right? Because if I zoom out, I start to see it as just like we were looking at that, kind of thinking of the restaurant experience, is there's a series of moments occurring here, right? There's an arrival experience. There was even a sign-up experience that was happening earlier on, right? There was the sign-up experience. There was the arrival experience, the waiting in line experience, which probably this waiting in line experience will all blend together into one, just waiting in line, and the check-in, and then when you get the test, and then when you pay and drive out. But someone designed this. And I think this is an interesting thing to think that it's, even the most basic kind of sterile health and safety things are designed in some way, in shape and form. Let's see here, and so how do we design it? Well, I kind of reordered this to say, to show you that the first thing we kind of do usually, at least in the profession, there's a number of ways to do this, but we try to order it in terms of chronological event structure. So a journey map is what we like to call it, is like, where's the starting point, where's the end point, and what's happening in between, right? And I think that's a nice structure. It's kind of a 1, 2, 3. There's a beginning, there's an end, and there's stuff happening in the middle. And again, that stuff happening in the middle are those kind of critical moments of what are different actions people have to take, things people have to do to deliver the service, right? So the first is just to get that laid out. The second thing we're doing in Experience Designer is we're starting to ask, what values are we trying to transmit during this experience, during each moment? The values are often going to come from your brand identity, or your organizational identity or organizational values. I tried to suggest what might some of the ones be for this COVID testing: professional, smart, innovative, compassionate. And what's interesting, you start to look at those in each moment of interaction, or each moment of experience that a person's going to have during that test. How are we transmitting these values, right? And then, and that's where we get into how do we actually transmit them? So which values do we want to transmit? And then how are we going to transmit them? And there's a lot of ways you can think about how we're going to transmit them. One of the ways I like to think about it is our sensory experience. What am I seeing? What am I hearing? What am I smelling? What am I tasting? What am I touching or feeling? Is one way to think about that. There's lots of ways I can transmit values. In the restaurant, we're thinking about it in multi-sensory experience because you're seeing things, you're tasting things, you're interacting with people. And so you're thinking about what are all those tools. You could also think about what part of this is a human transmitted experience versus what is a technology transmitted experience. What's a sign? What's a sound? So there's lots of ways to do the how, but this is the experience. What, how, and then what feelings are we trying to design into it? What feelings do we want people to come away with at each moment in this experience? Because ultimately what they're going to do is sum those moments, those defining moments into essentially good, bad, they're anxious or sad. Those all just get into like, is it a negative or positive reaction to it? And what's really fascinating in a lot of the studies, and probably the number one thing to remember in experience design, is that oftentimes it's two moments that will define the entire experience. And that is your best or worst moment in the entire experience, and your exit, you're at the end of the experience. Those are the things that seem to disproportionately stick in our memory after the experience is over. So one of the quotes we have here in experience design is, how do we fill the pits? How do we make sure there aren't really bad experiences? Because that's a risk. And how do we try to build the peaks? How do we try to build those really great moments? And so just to end here with one more quote, there is no such thing as neutral design. Everything is design. This chair I'm sitting in, the desk, the room you're in, this webinar was designed. John has a great, intro, a little bit of banter, a poll. There's some stuff at the end. I mean, this is all part of a storyline to create engagement with the audience. A book, Nudge, talks about how we behaviors and how we can design different choices and decisions to encourage people to do certain things and to make certain decisions and feel certain ways. Sprint is a great book when we connect design thinking into this. Design thinking really gives you tools to think of all the different solutions you could possibly use to design the experience and how to quickly test them. And Sprint's how you do that in 5 days. And it's very practical to take into your business or your organization and say, how do I just map it out in 5 days and try something?
So sure. So Signo, thanks. Great. That's a great introduction to this idea of experience design. I want to remind our viewers that we have a Q&A box. So if you would like to kind of submit your questions, even while the webinar is happening, please do so. So Signo, please go on to the second question. What are some interesting examples of organizations that have reimagined their experiences before, during COVID? Thanks.
Yeah. Awesome question, and I'm just going to barrage you with a bunch of examples, and then I'll try to end on the last one and explain it a little bit more, but I apologize ahead of time if this goes really fast, but hopefully it at least washes over you and you have a feeling of what experiences can do for an organization. So let's start with Disney. This is probably one of the more iconic worldwide. This is Disney Shanghai. Disney's built around experiences, right? Everything is about an adrenaline rush, or turn around and there's Mickey Mouse, or it's to create delight in moment after moment after moment. And they really understand that, from checking in to waiting in lines. Now, of course, waiting in line sometimes gets very difficult, but their whole business is premised around how do we create excellent experiences through great rides like this and rushes with other people. Disney is a great example of just looking at what they do and say, how might I do this in my my experience. Now, there might be a little bit of a hard transition from saying, how do I do this? I'm an accountant. But what I want to encourage is that, let's just state this right now. A meeting is an experience, right? And how might I create peak moments in that? How might I create an entry experience that settles everyone down? Do I want people to feel anxious? Do I want people to be relaxed? Do I want people to be on point? How might I produce that experience or put them in that emotional stance right from the beginning? How do I end the meeting before it just kind of gets dull and everyone's falling asleep? Is there a way that I can end it on a high note so people remember and go off and do something great? So there's ways to translate this into more kind of everyday, but I just want to give Disney as an example. It's always fun to look at them as they're cutting edge. Starbucks, they're a great one, right? They took what was a horrible instant coffee, kind of boring, make it at home kind of experience. And they said, wow, maybe you've visited some of these roasteries, these reserves that they've been popping up around the world in Shanghai, in Seattle, where I'm originally from. There's these incredible, this is coffee. This isn't just try your coffee. Coffee is an experience. One of the things that I think is amazing here is not only am I experiencing how they make it and smell, I'm greeted when I walk in and I am said goodbye to when I leave. That's super intentional. It says, we knew you were here and we appreciated you coming in, and people love that kind of thing. And you don't see that as often as it probably should be done everywhere, but Starbucks is excellent at experiences. Virgin America, or Virgin Galactic, whatever they're, Virgin Galactic, Virgin America, Virgin Atlantic, but Virgin Airlines said, why does the airport experience have to look like this? Why can't it be interactive? Why can't it have reds and purples? Why can't it feel like I'm going to something fun and innovative, not something boring? Why does the airplane have to feel dull and bright white lights? Why can't it be purple and feel like a club? All this is anxiety reducing and makes people have a great experience. And probably one of the most shared things about a Virgin was they radically rechanged entertainment on the airlines, and particularly the security video, which is in the center here. And they were one of the first to show the security video as a video, not the stewardess showing you what to do, and to make it fun and compelling. And people talked about it, right? This is an example of differentiating, creating a moment in a single moment in an experience that people talked about forever and started to fly the airline. Another one is medical. Who likes to go to the doctor or the dentist? The rooms are white, they look dangerous, it's scary. There's a company out of San Francisco, One Medical, that's been radically rethinking that. And again, a lot of these start with the spaces, but really there's process behind it as well. There's One Medical space when you arrive doesn't feel like a doctor's office. It feels like, I'm some co-working space, somewhere fun, somewhere stress reducing. You talk about values being infused into a design. This is about stress reduction, feeling like I'm well, right? And they do it all the way from the beginning, from the check-in experience, which is an app that's very well designed. It's easy to book see my doctor, know who I'm going to see, book it, to the entrance experience, what it looks like, to the resting, to the meeting the doctor. They've changed everything. Let's talk about during the COVID experience. Here's Canlis, Michelin star type restaurant in Seattle, fine dining, and then their business went to zero. So in a week, they had to pivot and figure out, what are we going to do? What's our new experience that translates the values of what we do, but into a different form? And so they created their to-go. And they took the same quality ingredients, the same incredible service, but they turned it into hamburgers for $10 instead of $150 per head dinner night, and they're just crushing it. They're having great success. These people want to support them. They know the values. It's a family-run business, 70 years, and they want to keep their 110 employees employed. And so they pivoted and created this great experience, great food. They've got farm to table, working with their suppliers, but every step of the way they've been working on what is the experience of interaction with us, not in the restaurant anymore, but outside of the restaurant. And so that's a really interesting example and near and dear to me for food. One of the last ones here is Allbirds, a great shoe company, went into Asia, I believe, a year ago. And one of the things that they did, besides opening up physical locations that are kind of beautiful and interactive, is they partnered with Alibaba as Tmall to be able to sell the shoes online. And when COVID hit, and their brick and mortar business went to zero, they were set up right away to be able to do e-commerce. And one of the things they changed immediately was to have live video chats with the in-store personnel. So all these in-store people who weren't doing anything anymore immediately became customer service agents who could do live video chats as if you were in the store with them. They show you what the shoes look like, as they're wearing them, with different clothes. They walk you around. They had this seamless transition to create this, we can't go in physically anymore, but how do we translate, the feeling of our stores online and with human interaction? And I think they're a great story. So I don't have a picture of it, but they're online. Two more, and then we're done. I wanted to give one more at a city scale. So any of you that work in cities or in big picture kind of stuff, this is a great example on the left. This is New York City in the center, and it's filled with cars, still is in a lot of places. But there's a great company, Gale Architects. They work internationally, and they do tests in cities, the experiences of cities for people, right? How do we make cities for pedestrians and biking and places that people want to be? And if you look on the right, it's something they did to transform New York City Times Square into a people-centric space. And they took a week, it was like a week where they shut it down temporarily. And a big part of what they do is what they call these guerrilla tactics of going in and shutting things down and setting up chairs and putting different artifacts there to see if the people will come. The people come, then it helps the legislators and the politicians and everyone else do what they need to do to make the experience a reality. But one of the things here is this is huge change for people's experience of New York City and that whole area. And they're starting to do this on the smaller scale now with COVID. You've probably seen a lot of these circles going up in cities. This is part of experiential design. How do we signal where people can be and where they can sit? How do we make it not feel sterile and dangerous? How do we make it feel fun and light, yellow, a sunshine in the middle of it? There's a lot of thinking going on behind the experience of how people arrive, interact, and move beyond, and cities is really interesting. The very last story, it's kind of a fun one. John Deere tractor. Being from the US, I think of it as the Midwest. What's interesting about this story is this is actually a story about John Deere going to Asia and really struggling in their move to Asia to have retention in their people. A lot of people didn't have that emotional connection to tractors, especially John Deere as a brand, as people in the U.S. did. And so John Deere asked the question of like, how do we keep our people and create an emotionally strong brand for our team? And one of the things that's interesting coming from experience design is that transition moments, arrivals and departures are one of those inflection points in our lives or in anything that has a disproportionate impact on how we feel and remember. It's an opportunity for a lot of people to change. And so what they said is when people are joining us as a team, this is a transition from what they were doing before to a whole new career, a whole new life. And so for that first day, when they show up, has a disproportionate impact on how they feel and remember this brand. And so they redesigned their entire first day. And I don't know for a lot of you, if you remember your first day at work, hopefully you do, but I'm sure a lot of you don't. Oftentimes it's not very well planned. Oftentimes you show up, someone kind of throws you down to a desk, hands you a manual, says, I'll check back in 2 hours. They kind of begrudgingly take you out with coworkers. John Deere said, no. We're going to redesign from the moment you arrive, who's picking you up. The president comes and greets you. You have a video, you have an artifact you take home with you. People stop by all day saying, hi, we're so glad you're here. They were so successful in this across Beijing and parts of China that people would joke, can we quit and get rehired? Now that might say something else about the experience of working, but I think that's a real cool story as well.
Signo, I think these are super inspiring examples, and I find it so fascinating that you can, depending on the circumstances and the conditions that you're in, you're able to kind of transmute those values and then redesign it, and basically create that new kind of experience. Really, it's a different product, really, for the user. So how can we apply this? What are some concrete steps that we can take immediately?
Yeah, so I know I hit you with a lot of, what is experience design and what is experience design, what are some examples. So this one's one slide and one slide only, so don't worry about too much flipping. Here are 3 things that I think are pretty easy to, a good place to start. And the first one is to determine what are the values that you're trying to transmit. Oftentimes we think about you know, I need to deliver food, I make hamburgers, or I need to deliver this report. It's a nice thing to step back and say, like, all right, our mission is to be smart, innovative, compassionate. All right, how do I infuse those values into the product or the service or the moment, you know, that I need to deliver? It takes a little bit more time and effort, but what you realize is that that is possible. And I think one of the interesting examples for me of this, when I had a very simple example and very relevant to the current moment with COVID, you've probably been a lot of places now where you have to, you know, wash your hands, and there's a lot of, you know, different squeeze bottles of sanitizer. You know, and safety and health have taken, like, you know, priority seat in a lot of people organizational values and parts of the experience. Problem is they get slapped on kind of at the front or at the back. You know, we're all rushing to just make things safe and health, which is great. But over time, we want to ask, what is that doing to the experience? In restaurants, it's really killing it. You see these future of restaurant articles that say, here's the future of restaurants. We're all wearing masks and distance, and, you know, it's all sanitized. And I say, that's not the future, because that's not a future where anyone's going to go out to a restaurant. That's a totally different experience. And if that's the experience, I want to stay home, right? And so what we need to do is we need to figure out, how do we maintain that safety and health, but evolve it into an experience that's still extraordinary, exceptional, or makes me want to leave my house. And one simple example is, like, how do I sterilize my hands? Do I need to use a squeeze bottle, or like some Japanese restaurants or on the airlines, they do this where they hand you the warm steamed towel, you know, that has some sanitizing soap in it. You know, it's a different experience. You have your towel, it feels really nice. So that's one way to accomplish the same goal, but in a very different way that transmits different values in a very simple way. Number two is develop that journey map. This is simply to understand, like we said, experiences are made up of many moments. And so to think about anything and everything that you're doing has a beginning, an end, and some middle steps or moments inside of it. And so if you can think about that, even handing a report to your boss has a beginning and middle and end. And so when you choose to go up, or what you say before, or how you hand it to them, you know, how you exit, all has an impact on how it's delivered. And so the journey map just helps you kind of deconstruct that and to think in moments. And I think the second thing it does, it helps you understand that moments are connected and they influence each other. So one moment kind of crashes into the next, and it will have an influence. It presets someone for the next moment. And the third tool is design thinking, which we're not covering a whole lot here, but to say that when it comes to how we design these moments, design thinking is a great tool, because design thinking says two things. One, there's more than one solution to just about every single problem. And so if you think there's only one way to do it, design thinking is a great way to expand, like how many different ways there are to do it. Often there's a lot. And then to choose one or two of those, the most promising, and to quickly test them, and to try to get that into a real world situation that you can test to get actual feedback, versus making an assumption in your brain about what will work or what won't. And so, yeah, so I think I'll stop there, but I think those are three ways to get started right away.
Signo, thank you. So now it's the open Q&A portion of the webinar. So right now, if you can, the Q&A box has always been open, but please write your questions in the Q&A box, and please upvote questions that resonate with you. So we have our first question. It comes from Yiling Lai. Yiling, can we put you on the line now? And can you just introduce yourself and then share your question to Signo?
Hi, everybody. Hi. This is Yiling from Singapore. I work for Microsoft. I'm actually a physical architect. So I understand that example you shared from on the screen. So I'm just wondering how we as individuals within our organizations, or can catalyze experiences. Like, what's your opinion about doing it from bottom up? I think that's essentially my question.
Sure.
Signo, did you catch that?
What was the last? I didn't catch the very last part.
Yeah.
What was that?
Repeat the last.
What is your in your knowledge, Signo, I'd like you to share, how do you see the power of individuals creating experiences that can catalyze positive change? Because you shared about Disney and Starbucks.
Oh,
So
yeah.
those are top-down drives, and
Yep.
wondering from bottom-up. Can you
Right.
share?
Yiling, so I want to clarify. So it's kind of like how sharing about how individuals can do this for the organization.
Yep.
Yes, or
Yeah.
even to drive certain values that we hold that we would like to influence organizations.
Yeah. Yeah, great question, Yiling. And yeah, how do you drive it, bottom up versus top down, which is always a challenge across a lot of different things in organizations. And since we're going to try to do a few questions, I'll probably do it as quickly as possible, and then we can follow up. I guess my approach is there's always a certain amount of risk, and each person's going to be in a different position to take that risk or not. But I think that it's often really great to look for an experience that isn't, life or death within your organization, where you can try a test. I'm a big fan of tests. So for experience design, is there is there a meeting that you're going to run that's just with, maybe it's fellow colleagues or someone else, where it's not not a critical meeting, but it's just an everyday meeting that you can change, some aspect of that design, where you can think about what's the arrival experience, how do I want to do the middle, and how do I want to do the end, and can I make an extraordinary moment in there? Can I surprise people in some way? And oftentimes we do that with, like, we bring food or pizza, or we do something to kind of make it, to make it fun. And that could be a surprise. Maybe you've never had anything delivered in the middle of a meeting, right? You could have something delivered right in the middle of the meeting that shocks everyone, that you order them Starbucks, and Starbucks arrives right when everyone's starting to get tired in the meeting. And they will thank you for it, and they will never forget it, and they will tell everyone else about it. So sometimes it's just like within our own sphere of influence, our own coworkers is a good place to start, versus trying to, maybe to bat too big, where we try to, like, go for mass, organizational transformation immediately. Though go for it if you want to do that. But I think, in our everyday lives and our everyday coworkers, what are the ways that I can make my interactions and experiences with the people around me that much more intentional? Again, understanding that there's a beginning, middle, and end to it, and that if I can make extraordinary moments, surprises, transitions, that can have a disproportionate impact on how they feel, and that can really change, over time, the culture of the company.
So our second question comes from Cheryl Wong. Can we have her on the line? Cheryl?
Hi, Cheryl.
Yep.
Share your introduce yourself and share your question to Signo.
Yep. Thanks, John. Hi, Signo. This is Cheryl from Malaysia. We actually met when you came down sometime last year for the Harvard event. So great to talk with you.
Hi, Cheryl. Good to see you.
Yeah. My question is, given that there is a beginning, middle, and end, how can we accelerate the internalization of these experiences in an organization, given that it really can and does deliver real business value? Because very often the beginning and end, or even sometimes the middle portions, are fronted by people who may not necessarily understand, much less appreciate the importance of this. So would like to hear your view. Thanks.
Yeah, Cheryl, thanks again for the question, and hopefully, things calm down in the world. I can see you again in Malaysia in the near future, and maybe you can tell me about something you've been able to try out. I think, yeah, again, this is a great challenge. The thinking about the beginning, the middle, and the end, and that some people aren't going to appreciate that. I think, again, if you can lead by example, if you can try things with them to demonstrate, what it's like to think in that way. I mean, there's a couple ways. There's education. You could just send them this video, or send them the book. The book Power of Moments can miraculously end up on their on their desk. But I think demonstrating it as best as you can in your own interactions with other people is going to be probably the most effective way to do this. And whether that's, you can invite someone out for a coffee and you kind of tease them, by doing multiple things during that, you taking them out. Maybe you surprise them by getting them an order larger, or getting them food or something. And just, you can kind of say afterwards, like, you can kind of draw a lesson out from it. how did that make you feel? Maybe they'll ask you, like, why are you doing this? Why did you buy me that? Why did you do this? Why did we walk this way? You say, well, we walked the long route because it has this beautiful view, and I wanted that beautiful view before we went and had that coffee, because I knew it would put us both in this mindset of like, feeling inspired. And, it could be as simple and subtle as that. And, I think that's powerful. And you're absolutely right. A lot of people just jump right into the middle. What is it I need to get done? Right? Here's the report, or here's the meeting, and you don't think about, like, you need to start with an arrival, a starting moment. You're priming people to be ready for whatever it is that you want them to receive, right? Because if people are coming in with a lot of baggage, we all have private lives, emotional lives. We're coming in, we don't know what those variables are. And so the more that we can start with an arrival, a start where we can get everyone kind of on the same page, either inspired or calm, etc., the more apt we are to be able to succeed with whatever we're trying to deliver as the service, the product, the interaction in the middle of the experience, and then when we leave. And so, and I don't think I have a perfect solution for that, but the idea, if you can try it out.
Signo, I have a related question to that, and it's
Sure.
a comment and then a question. I once heard a comedian break down kind of the business of shows, and she said that she was evaluated by the number of laughs by second of her segment, and always she always the ones who were the most popular, who brought in the money, who brought in the business value for the show, were the ones who had a higher rating. So is there, what can you say about, how you can, I guess, prove the business value of those moments? Maybe that might be another way to tackle Cheryl's question.
Yeah, it makes me think, I don't know if it's a direct response or not. One of the other companies that was really well known for delivering extraordinary experiences or moments really was Zappos, the shoe company. Delivering Happiness, great book by Tony Hsieh. But one of the things I always remember is a call center experience they had, right? Where most call centers are designed around incentivize how quickly can you handle the issue? Can you be on there 20 seconds or less, 30 seconds, 60 seconds? They reversed that at Zappos and said, we want you to delight the customer however long it takes. And so they had these extraordinary stories of people on the phone for 8 hours, or someone who needed a pizza shipped to their brother. And it's they don't ship pizzas, they sell shoes, but they took care of them anyway. And what happened was that they realized that again, this was an example of we can count the seconds we're on the phone. It's such a management organizational style to the bottom, efficiency minded versus growth minded, which in many ways experience design is growth minded, where it says if you can deliver an extraordinary moment, an exceptional moment that people will talk about, it does all the work for you into the future. And so I think that's one of the keys here is not to think about how can you kind of subtly make everything a little bit better, is where can you throw in some extraordinary moments or aspects of a meeting, a webinar. One other example I have of just in general, I had a friend who always showed up late to meetings, and it drove me crazy. John knows this friend, Christoph. I hope he's watching. He would show up to every single one of our design meetings late, 10 minutes late, and it drove me nuts. But he would show up with balloons, salsa and chips, and beer every single time. Right. And it was you couldn't be upset with him. Right. I mean, the time part made it, brought down my experience with him, but then he brought balloons. Who brings balloons to a meeting? No one brings balloons to me. It was absurd, but it was absurd in such a way that I still tell this story 10 years later, every single time, and so you're kind of looking for those opportunities to do something that's unexpected for people. And if you can do that, surprise, unexpected, it changes the monotony of every day, right? We go to work week to week, we sit in the same place, we interact the same way. But if you can find those just little moments to do something exceptional or different, it has a big ripple effect, on others. And again, I think if you can demonstrate it to others on your team, people will start to talk about it, and that buzz builds, and eventually the boss hears about it, and eventually that works its way up.
That's super insightful, Signo, and I like the example with Christoph. So unfortunately, we're on our last question. So let's put Elaine on the line. So Elaine, please introduce yourself and share your question to Signo.
Hi,
Elaine.
I'm a student from Mexico. I'm just studying engineering in development and innovation.
Excelente.
So, hola. So I was just wondering, how do you use these experiences when related to online experiences? I mean, because
Yeah.
right now I'm starting a business with my family for selling bicycles. So how can we generate an experience in that?
That's great. Great question, Elaine. And I should, you know, vamos a hablar en español para esta parte. I would say that it's because no one else would understand it, but it's also because my Spanish is still working its way up. It's a great question. We're all living online and in our homes right now. And I think one of the things, a couple of suggestions is one, again, to just like this webinar, there's a beginning, kind of a middle segment, and then John's going to have an ending part. And so when you're thinking about your interaction with these customers, you're thinking a little bit about what's that beginning experience, what's that, end. But that middle is where you can get really interesting. What is something like exceptional you can do in the middle to really stand out? You know, Allbirds had the example where they had, someone could call you live wherever you are, and maybe you're in your basement. You can't come to them, but you can demonstrate the bike and show them from, live there. You can show them riding. Maybe you can send them the bike to test, and you're on a video call with them as they're testing out the bike. Maybe you can find a professional cyclist that lives near them, who's part of your ambassadorship, who you can send to their house, and they can physically distance, but he can demonstrate how to use the bike. I think the big thing is, like, can you find some exceptional moments to connect people? And if it can't be physical, maybe it's you get someone to, again, like someone awesome biker to do a quick 20-second video personalized for that customer that you're talking with, and they can send it to them. So just different ways to think about that, but we can follow up, and good luck to you in that. Sounds great.
Okay, so Signo, unfortunately, that was our last question, and I want to apologize to our other viewers who submitted good questions. And I saw Ruben with a great question, Yiling with another great question, Juan, Najwa. Thank you so much for your.
John, it sounds like you're gonna have to build something onto your website where we can just go fill those out. People can check it.
Definitely. No, I mean, I think I have a lot to learn from you, Signo. So I'll just close up now just with some announcements. So next week, working in the discomfort of change is often the most difficult leadership practice because it begins with changing yourself. So join us for a webinar with Junko Yoda. She's a Harvard University ALI fellow, former managing director from Deutsche Bank, as we learn how to identify triggers by becoming more aware of our body, emotions, thoughts, and impulses to improve our decision-making during difficult moments. And also, if your organization is interested in bringing a customized learning experience to your organization, we are offering programs in person, online, or anything in between on many of these topics: adaptive leadership, thinking like a futurist, becoming a professional thinker. Signo is one of our design thinking faculty, and we have also discussed about doing that as well. Now, in case you are curious about our in-house programs, please do continue signing up for our webinars, but you may also sign up to Cal Online, which will be free for a limited period. Please go to online.asialeadership.org to take advantage of our top video series on leadership and innovation. Check out Signo's video there. It's a good one. And I also want to remind our viewers that our books are available for online purchase on our website, the Rethinking Asia series and the Asia Leadership Institute series. And we are continually working hard on our next publication as well. And this is the announcement that gets said every week with no new updates, but don't worry, we are applying Signo's lessons to November. So we want to remind you about our forum that was originally scheduled for May 2020. It's now being moved to November. It may not necessarily be November 6th or November 9, but it will be moved to November. So please stay tuned for updates on this. There will be exciting updates, and they're happening behind the scenes. So if you'd like to learn about our center, please do visit our website, our social media platforms, as well as, of course, via email. You can also follow me you can contact me through this email, as well as follow me on Instagram. Please do connect with Signo on his LinkedIn. He's always posting very interesting content, and also content specifically on this topic, on today's webinar topic, as well as please do follow on Instagram, somos.rest. It's very inspiring, just all the things that they're doing. Please do follow that. And I also want to thank our collaborative partner, InvestKL, as they are working to help organizations with their growth strategies in emerging markets. So lastly, if you could fill out the exit survey, we'll leave. Continue improving our webinar programs moving forward. Please do provide us with any of your ideas on how we can create an awesome experience for you. And lastly, thank you for your time today. We hope you have a wonderful rest of the day. And if you are in the other side of the world, like Signo, we hope that you have a nice rest. So stay safe and do fight the good fight of making our organizations and communities better. So thank you so much. We hope to see you again next time. And thank you, Signo.
Thanks, John. Thanks, everyone.